This is Mark Strassman, reporter with Etopia Media's California Politics Today. We're about to speak to three representatives of the California Clean Money Campaign here on Pico Boulevard in Los Angeles. Welcome to Etopia Media's California Politics Today.
Thanks so much, Mark, for having us. I'm Susan Lerner. I'm the Executive Director of the California Clean Money Campaign, and these two gentlemen are staff members with the California Clean Money Campaign.
You want to identify yourselves?
My name is Eric Cervantes. I'm the Latino Outreach Manager.
Okay.
And my name is Eric Tang, and I'm the Communications Coordinator.
Okay, great. Why don't we start by telling us why there's a need for clean money in election campaigns?
Well, there's a need for clean money in election campaigns. First of all, I think that your viewers might want to have some idea of exactly what clean money is.
Please.
And what it is a system of fully paid, full public financing of election campaigns, so that rather than having wealthy donors or large corporations pay candidates in order to run, it's the public that pays candidates to be representatives of the public.
So that's likely to end up with them being responsible to the public that pays them rather than the corporations and wealthy individuals.
Exactly right, because generally speaking, you work for the people who pay you. And while you may earn a salary as an elected official, your candidacy, your campaigns are paid at a much, much greater amount than your actual salary. And under our current system, the primary contributors are special interests, wealthy individuals, corporations, and others who have an interest in affecting public policy.
Okay, tell us how the California Clean Money Campaign fits into the national effort, how it relates to a group called Public Campaign, how it relates to other state organizations.
Well, we are part of a nationwide movement, and our connections are really as a network of activists and organizations that are all working for the same goal, which is to provide fully publicly financed elections at all levels of government, national, state, local, so that we can, if not completely eliminate, certainly minimize the effect which large campaign contributions have on our public policy.
How successful has the national movement been so far? Where can you point with pride?
Well, first of all, the national movement was very successful in the 70s in establishing public financing for presidential elections, which I think is massive. Since then, there hasn't been the progress that people had hoped to see, but there is definitely a movement, and there are bills pending in Congress to try and expand full public financing to include legislative races on the federal level at all, as well. Sorry.
Could you say something specifically about what's pending in Washington and who's supporting it there? If there is any?
There are bills, but
right.
Frankly, I don't have that information at my fingertips, since we concentrate here on efforts in California. But we are part of a network of similar organizations around the country. So, for instance, our colleagues in Connecticut just were successful in having Connecticut be the first state in the union to pass full public financing through its legislature, and that bill was signed into law by the governor at the very beginning of December. And Connecticut now is going to be providing a full public funding alternative for its campaigns.
Okay, I think maybe we'll talk more about Connecticut in a minute, but tell us about the structure of your organization, where it gets its money, what it does in its organizing, and let your two colleagues also comment on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Eric, do you want to?
Where we get our money, or?
Yeah, where you get your money, how you spend it, and what you do.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, our organization is a grassroots organization that has active volunteers up and down the state that go out and are in the trenches educating the public about this issue, which is a fairly new concept to many people. And we are also trying to organize around our bill in the Assembly, which is Assembly Bill 583, which is authored by Lonnie Hancock in the Berkeley area, and we are gaining support for that as well, and it'll be voted on in the Assembly Elections Committee in January.
Say a little bit more about the specifics of that bill. What's its number again, and what would it do exactly?
It's Assembly Bill 583, and it is designed to, if it passes and is signed in by the governor, it will put a referendum on the ballot, which will allow the people of the state to vote whether or not they want to have a clean money alternative for their elections.
Okay, so it's a referendum. What are the specific provisions in terms of the funding that it would provide?
Well, it would cover all assembly races, all state senate races, as well as statewide offices, including the governor's race.
And what would people need to do to get that public funding under that bill?
To qualify to become a clean money candidate, you have to collect a certain number of $5 qualifying contributions that have to be from residents within the district that you're seeking to represent. So, for example, an assembly race, I believe our bill specifies they need 500 $5 qualifying contributions from members within that district.
Okay. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your role in all this?
I'm primarily dedicated to bringing Latinos here in California to the fold as far as the organization and our legislation is concerned. With the increase of the Latino community here in California over the last couple of years, it's a huge community that, for the most part, really hasn't participated in the past, but is increasing its participation, and we're trying to bring them into participating in the political process by educating them about clean money, about our bill, and just getting the word out and just teaching people about it.
Is access to big corporate and high net worth individual money an obstacle for fuller participation in California politics by the Latino community?
I would say definitely. I mean, it's very easy for a contributor to pick up a phone and call a legislator that they gave $10,000 to, as opposed to someone who lives in East Los Angeles who hasn't given any money at all. It's definitely a hindrance for them to actually have any sort of contact with legislators and actually get things done for their community. So I think it plays a huge role, not only here in California, but in the nation as a whole. And so that's something that we'd like to change and bring more people to just participate here in California.
Talk more specifically about the activities that you engage in to get more people engaged. What do you do?
Well, right now we're working on meeting with different Latino legislators, speaking with them. We're also involved in speaking with organizations, professional organizations right now, like Mexican American Bar Association, MALDEF, other organizations along those lines that participate politically.
How active have they been and supportive of this effort, the Latino political organizations?
I think definitely, we've spoken to many groups, and some have come on board, but we're still working on bringing them on, other groups on board as well right now. I think as the legislation picks up and as this issue grows, more and more organizations and groups will come and support this, because it really doesn't take. This is definitely something that many groups across cultural lines can definitely support, because having more people participate, having legislators actually do things for them is something that it's an easy concept for them to grasp. So.
What are the arguments you make to Latino organizations as to why they should support the California Clean Money campaign?
I think what we do is we look at Arizona, which has had this system for a couple of years now, and Arizona has been very successful in, as a result of clean money in Arizona, there have been more Latinos, more minorities, more women running for and winning office seats, as well as more minorities going out and actually voting, because they feel like the legislators actually will work for them as opposed to the corporate interests. So I think these are, for us, those are the two strongest arguments that we have for their support of this legislation, this organization.
And a more responsive government is definitely going to help the communities which have been underrepresented in the past, and who, because they don't have the heft of large campaign contributions, all too often feel that their elected representatives are not responsive to their community needs and concerns.
Talk a little bit more about, after a person qualifies for clean money, how much do they get? And is that enough to run a viable campaign against a candidate that's getting private money?
The system is calibrated to allow a cleanly elected candidate to run an effective campaign. We've based our figures, and we're revising our figures in AB 583 with the assistance of our bill's author, Lonnie Hancock, and other legislators, to be sure that we are indeed providing enough money as a baseline, and particularly in competitive races, so that there is a reason to run as a clean candidate. That is, you get enough money. There's very little reason to have the public adopt a measure which would not allow a clean candidate to run a viable campaign. So, for instance, right now, a candidate for the assembly would receive a baseline of $100,000 for the primary and an additional $150,000 for the general election. But in most instances where you have a competitive race with a vigorous campaign going on, the clean candidate would receive additional money to match the money spent in the campaign by traditionally funded candidates, so that a clean candidate could receive as much as $600,000 of public funds to run in a party primary and $900,000 to run in the general election. And we're looking at those figures right now based on how much it costs to run for the Assembly in 2004 to determine whether we need to raise those maximums. And I think that we will indeed need, particularly at the Assembly level, to raise the maximums. But you can receive, for instance, $1.5 million running for state senate. So it varies according to office, and what we've tried to do is peg it based on what does it actually cost to run here in California, so that candidates can run a effective, viable, winning campaign with public money.
Are clean money candidates prohibited from receiving any money other than the money they get from the government?
That's correct.
Okay.
Basically what happens is they're allowed to raise private funds in increments no larger than $100,
right,
to a relatively low cap for what we call seed money,
right,
to print up some brochures, to have a campaign telephone line, to go out and find out, am I a viable candidate, and to gather the $5 qualifying contribution.
So they can accept up to $100 to organize their campaign to collect the, say, $500 contributions.
Right. So, for instance, for Assembly, you can collect $7,500 in seed money.
Right.
But no one contribution of that seed money can be more than $100. If your uncle is Bill Gates, he can give you $100. If you yourself are personally wealthy, you can only contribute $100 in seed money to your own campaign and $5 in a qualifying contribution.
Okay. Now, you've said up to $1.5 million might be available to California State Senate candidates. Have you made estimates about what this is going to cost the state overall to have a clean election, and what kind of assumptions have you made about how many candidates would be running and so on?
What we've done is we've looked at the number of candidates historically, and we've basically have doubled or tripled it, and looked at how much it would cost to provide each and every one of them with clean money funding. And what we found is that for the very modest cost of approximately $5.50 to $6 a year per adult Californian, you can fund a clean money system quite adequately.
That's about $130 or $140 million,
correct.
Isn't it? Okay.
That's correct.
I want to talk a little bit more about the context of this process. How important do you think the current campaign finance structure is to the vast disillusionment of many people in the political process?
Do you have a take on that, Eric?
I'm sorry. If you could repeat that again, I'm sorry.
To what extent is low voter turnout and cynicism about politics and government a function of the way campaigns are financed right now?
I think that they play a huge role, especially here. If you look at in Los Angeles locally in the last mayoral election, I believe 31% of the people actually turned out to come out and vote for the mayoral race, and people were really, in the editorials that were published in the LA Times and other publications, you looked at what people were saying, and over and over and over again they said the same thing. Both candidates were taking money from various places, some from Miami and other places inside the state, or other places inside the state, and many of the voters said the same thing. I'm just not going to go out and vote because I don't trust either candidate. So I think it plays a huge role, and I think definitely things need to be done. And I think clean money is definitely the first thing that can be done here, not in Los Angeles but in California, to change this perception.
Could you or any of the others say something about the impediments to serious reform substantively? Issues like immigration, healthcare, education, gun control, taxes, is presented by the current structure, and how do you imagine that clean money would ameliorate the situation?
Well,
Please.
Well, I think definitely many of the decisions that are made as a result of whether it's healthcare financing, whether it's drugs, whether it's a number of public policy decisions that are made in Sacramento or in Washington D.C. They're influenced by the amount of money that are given by huge corporate or their special interest backers.
So say something about how the campaign finance structure dovetails with the lobbying structure and how they work together.
Well, I mean, they're interlocked. In most instances, the entities which make the largest campaign contributions are also the entities which have the money and the interest to fund lobbyists at a very high level of compensation.
And together, what does that do for what's called access?
Well, it absolutely strangles it, frankly. What happens is that the average citizen doesn't have access to their elected officials. That's particularly a problem here in California, where on the state level we have unusually large districts. We have a relatively small legislature relative to our size. If you compare the number of individuals, the number of residents which a California Assembly member or a California state senator represents, it's absolutely huge, and it's much larger than in any of the other states. And in fact, a California senator will represent more California residents than a California congressman.
Just as a side note here, do you think there ought to be more people in the legislature, or the state ought to be broken up into smaller sizes?
Well, I personally, and this is not a California clean money issue,
right,
but I personally believe that we should have more legislators with smaller districts so that individuals have a better connection and a better chance of being able to communicate with their elected officials. When you then add on the overlay of the amount of money which candidates have to be able to collect in order to run a credible campaign in California, they spend most of their time during the campaigns dialing for dollars and at fundraisers, and they don't have the time to go out and actually interact with ordinary people in everyday situations, so that access to the candidate and then later to the elected official is tremendously constrained by whether it's worth their time to talk with you. And if the choice is talking to a corporate representative who is able to write a $10,000 corporate check, or a union representative who could write a $20,000 union PAC check, or talking to Mrs. Jones or Mrs. Lopez outside the local high school about how their kids are doing, the choice is clear. The candidate has virtually no alternative but to spend his time talking to the corporate representative who's going to write the $10,000 check, or the union PAC leader who is going to write a $20,000 check.
Okay. Speaking of these union leaders and these corporate PACs, what kind of reaction have you seen from them to your campaign?
Well, to the credit of the union leaders that we've been speaking with, they have shown a very genuine interest in our proposal and in the topic of reforming campaign finance reform. They basically feel they're in a money race not of their own making, that they would prefer to spend their money organizing union members and gaining better working conditions for their members, and not in having to feel that they must keep up with corporate opponents in a dollar-for-dollar race to be sure that they continue to have access to elected officials.
Have any large or small California unions endorsed your
yes,
program?
Yes, the
Which
California
ones?
Nurses Association is a very, very strong supporter. The United Food and Commercial Workers Region 8 has come out in favor of clean money and is working with us and our bill sponsor to revise the bill. Now, interestingly enough, what also is beginning to happen is that we are hearing of more and more corporations who have exactly the same feeling that the unions do, which is that they are forced to give campaign donations because they feel their competitors are giving campaign donations.
So you're essentially talking about replacing mutual assured destruction with some sort of stand down from both sides.
That's correct. That's correct. So that a corporation has a chance to talk to an elected official not based on how much money did you give me in the last election, but do you employ people in my district? Is your business important? Do you have something significant that I need to know as an elected representative?
So you're essentially saying this would liberate corporations and unions and candidates to be more fully democratic with a small d.
That's correct.
Okay. You're the communications director. What can you say about the fact that local news stations often do very little in the way of covering, especially the policy aspects of local and state campaigns, but they're more than willing to put ads, paid ads, for candidates and initiatives on their airwaves, and how do you see clean money interfacing with the entire media ecosphere and the way candidates get their message out to the voters?
Well, there's very little that I can do probably to change the minds of local news stations on what they choose to cover and what they don't. I mean, that'd be a question for them. But as far as how clean money will affect the broader communications aspect of it all, I mean, the hope is with where in campaigns where it's not a matter of how much money you have to fundraise, where it's about communicating with voters. The hope is that all candidates could be able to convey their messages however they so choose through the 30-second ads or through mailers in a way that the public is exposed to the various candidates and really gets to understand what they are about, what they stand for, and can make their decision based upon that, as opposed to being overwhelmed by a number of 30-second spots from one candidate who's essentially trying to buy an election.
Well, Eric, you might want to talk a little bit about what we've been discussing on the city level with the cable contract.
Right. Well, I mean, at the since a lot of stations are controlled at the federal level, there's not that much we can do at the state level to influence that. But at the city level, we're talking about making it a part of the cable franchise's contracts locally that with the clean money system, they'll have to give either free or reduced cost airtime to candidates.
Or other creative ways of using cable access to be able to allow candidates who are cleanly elected to communicate directly with the voters. It may not be free airtime, but there are other things that we're looking at, and we're working with a community-wide coalition here in Los Angeles studying how best to use the cable franchise contract as a way in which to reconsider and reconfigure communications.
Okay, we're in Los Angeles. A study has been approved recently by the City Council to look into clean money for Los Angeles. What role did you play in that, and can you tell us what that would do and what the status of that particular project is?
Well, I'm happy to say that I believe that the City Council's efforts basically grew out of conversations which we have all had and which our supporters have had with members of the City Council. We have 3 very strong supporters of clean money on our City Council here in Los Angeles.
Let's give them credit where credit is due.
Eric Garcetti has been a member of the California Clean Money Campaign's advisory board for a number of years. Bill Rosendahl is passionate. Bill Rosendahl is a passionate supporter of clean money and made it one of the issues which he campaigned upon in his 2004 election race, which put him on the City Council for the first time. And Councilmember Wendy Gruhl is also very passionate and very articulate on the topic of the benefits which clean money would have for candidates similar to herself and for her community, which encompasses parts of the valley.
What did the resolution passed by the City Council say to do, and how far along is that process?
The resolution basically takes a leaf from some actions which took place in Portland, Oregon last year. The motion directs the city's legislative analyst to prepare a study, to do a factual investigation into other clean money systems, and to make some recommendations to the City Council. What would it take to convert LA's partial public financing campaign finance system to full clean money public financing? Is it feasible here? What would a possible proposal look like? And the ledge analyst is directed to work with us, the California Clean Money Campaign, and the city attorney, the chief administrative officer in the mayor's office in preparing such a study and in making some proposals.
Now, you made an estimate of about $130 to $140 million to bring clean money to California. You have an estimate for what it would take in Los Angeles?
I don't yet, because we have not gone about trying to come up with a system for the city. We think that for the city, we're very delighted to have an open working relationship with the city employees and the council, and they've got the information that's necessary to do that kind of an analysis. It's going to be significantly less money than it would cost on the state level.
Would that also be implemented through a referendum, or could the city council vote it in itself?
The city council would place it on the ballot because, as I understand it, it would require a charter amendment in order to convert our current partial system to a full clean money system.
What are your expectations right now about the likelihood that Los Angeles will adopt clean money in the near future?
Well, I'm very optimistic. I think that we have a very engaged city council. I mean, we were all at the city council meeting where the motion was passed. I had not expected it to be passed unanimously, and it was, which was really very, very exciting for us. So we think that a well-featured, well-reasoned proposal has a decent chance of moving forward.
And how important for the rest of California and for other cities around the United States would the adoption of clean money in Los Angeles be?
Well, let's face it, Los Angeles is a leader. And I think it would have a tremendous impact, not just here in California, which would provide a fantastic model, not only for other municipalities, but for the state as a whole. But I think that it would have ramifications throughout the country, just as our mayor's election had ramifications throughout the country, and we saw, and indeed internationally, where there was genuine coverage. There's always interest in what Los Angeles is doing.
I'd like all three of you to comment on, to elaborate more on what you said earlier, that the unions and some corporations are supportive. How big a change in the political culture do you think this would create? And do you think those that benefit from that now are going to sit idly by and let that change take place?
I think we're definitely going to feel a lot of opposition from a number of groups. But I think in the long run, this is definitely something that people used to say, we're giving democracy back to people. And I've always thought, I don't know if that's actually true. This would actually be giving democracy to people maybe for the first time in the history of the United States, where everyone can participate regardless of the amount of money they have or the connections that they have. And so I think this would play a huge role. And so as a result of it, the opposition is going to be huge from corporate and other power players, current power players as well.
Okay. You have any comments on the backlash and how you're going to deal with it?
Well, I think the most important thing is to try to explain what we're doing in a way it's compelling to everyone. And what we're really trying to do is to restore trust in government and ensure fairness and make sure our politicians are accountable. And these are things that everyone, regardless of their background, should support. I mean, it should not be a matter of political persuasion or even your job to agree that anybody who's a good candidate with good ideas should be able to run for office with a real chance of winning, regardless of whether or not they're personally wealthy or have wealthy connections.
Have the political parties chimed in? The Democratic, Republican, and the smaller parties, do they have any views on it?
We're very proud to have as endorsing organizations the state Democratic Party as well as the state Green Party are supportive of the clean money concept.
Okay.
And we're in discussions with various Republican members of the Assembly, and we've had some discussions with the leadership of the Republican Party. This is a non-partisan issue, and particularly right now in California, people from all political backgrounds are simply tired of the huge amount of money that is spent on campaigns. The special election was, I think, a gigantic wake-up call, not just to the general public, but to the people who make those donations, because it's now clear that they are on a treadmill and that there doesn't seem to be any end in sight. So even the large donors are beginning to say, we've had it, there has to be a better way.
How important and how satisfied are you with the coverage in the mainstream media and television, newspapers, and so on with the California Clean Money campaign? You're the communications director. Are you getting?
I think we've had significant success as far as newspaper presses go. Just earlier this month, the Los Angeles Times editorialized in favor of our clean money bill, and that was a wonderful thing to see. And we do get significant coverage up and down the state. In the newspapers, we have not really breached the television market as it at this point. But
Okay.
It's a much more challenging market. We've gotten some very good radio coverage. This is a topic which doesn't lend itself as easily to the 30-second visual soundbite, but we're working on that, and I think that certainly by this time next year, but I would expect by the middle of next year that we're going to begin to get some significant television coverage as well.
We're almost out of time, but say a little bit, if you want, about how what we have in the U.S. now compares with other countries, and how a clean money, clean election structure would compare with, say, Scandinavia and other European countries in terms of how they finance their elections.
Well, in many instances in Western Europe, there are publicly funded elections. There are also requirements that advertising be carried at no cost to the candidates, and there are requirements for public debates by the candidates. But the truth of the matter is that here in the United States, we rarely look to other nations, whether that's for good or for ill, to decide how we're going to run our system. So we really need to be talking about what works here in the United States, and Arizona and Maine provide excellent examples. I did want to return, Mark, to something which you asked earlier that we didn't directly address, because I don't want people to feel that it's a topic that we're avoiding.
Okay, as long as you can address it in 2.5 minutes.
2.5 easily. We are a grassroots organization. We're a membership organization. Our money comes from individuals who believe strongly in our cause and how beneficial clean money could be for California. So the vast majority of our money comes from just ordinary people. We have some larger donors, and we do receive some foundation money. But we don't receive corporate money, we don't receive union money, and we are a 501c3. We're basically an educational organization. Our purpose is to help Californians understand how this system works, and hopefully to convince them that this is a reform that we need here in California, because we believe it's the reform that makes all other reforms possible.
Okay, why don't we wrap up by each of you telling us why you think it's important that clean money, clean elections come to California. You got about 25 seconds.
I don't know if I could say all the reasons that I feel that clean money is important in 25 seconds, but I will give one, which is I believe that everyone should be able to run for office with a realistic chance of winning, regardless of wealth.
Okay, and what would you like to say to that question?
I think accountability, bringing more people to the political fold, are both very important things that clean money will bring about here in California.
Okay. Now,
and I'm excited because I think it has a chance to restore our democracy and to really revivify people's faith in their elected officials.
Okay. I want to thank you all for your work and for talking to us today on California Politics Today.
Thank you.